us, but we wanted to kind of show a few things of ways that you can engage either your class or a meeting. Oh, we should be, oh, you are recording, good, okay. And so, so we're gonna show you some things such as breakout rooms, which I know some of you have been using, some of you haven't. We're also then going to look at some of the collaborative tools such as Google Jamboard or Microsoft Whiteboard. And then Christy's going to show a little bit with polling, right? Because that's another way you can engage your class or engage your colleagues in the meeting. And then we're going to end it with showing a little bit with Padlet. I'm glad to see Allison on here. She actually led a couple of weeks ago a Padlet session. So if you've not seen it, it's really great. So I'm just going to show a little bit with it. I think our faculty have had more experience with that, but I'll show you also where that stuff is, and we'll wrap up that way. So I don't know if there's any questions you all have in the meantime that you definitely say, hey, I really want to know this. Okay. And if not, I'm going to turn it over to Christy.
All right. So this might be a review for some of you because we did a breakout session specifically a little while ago. And we're just going to kind of go over this. Creating breakout rooms in Zoom can be fun for participants. And many of you probably have been in them. I don't know how many of you, has anybody not created a breakout room? Okay, but Yvonne, you have created a breakout room. Lies. Okay.
Not by myself, totally.
Okay, so most of you have some experience. How many of you feel comfortable doing it? Okay. So we're kind of half and half. All right. This is one of those things that the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. Zoom keeps coming up with additional updates that allow you to have more flexibility with breakout rooms. Now, if you're a co-host, you can create breakout rooms. That did not used to be the case, which is really helpful. So if you're hosting a meeting and you have multiple co-hosts, you can be doing something else while your co-host is creating the breakout rooms and putting people in the breakout rooms, which is very handy because that is a lot to manage when you're trying to manage the chat and do a presentation and do breakout rooms and all of that kind of stuff. So that's a handy feature. So first thing is if you are the host or the co-host, you are going to see, and I apologize for sharing you all staring at yourselves, but this is the only way to do this. You're either going to see breakout rooms along the bottom here, or you're going to see the More tab if your screen is not wide enough. So mine is not wide enough, and so I'm going to click here and I'll see breakout rooms. When you click breakout rooms and drag it back over here, it's going to give you the option to create breakout rooms. This is your initial screen. So you can create however many you want to do, and you can do this on the fly. There is a way to do this ahead of time. It's not as reliable. You can set up the breakout rooms and name them. You can theoretically pre-assign people. If they're all center people, it works better if they're all logging in using their center email addresses, and they do it properly through the single sign-on, then it will work. You can pre-assign them to those breakout rooms, but if they don't, then it doesn't work. And then you have some finagling to do afterwards anyway. It is pretty easy to do on the fly. So if I wanted to create 3 breakout rooms, then I have an option. I can either assign automatically, assign manually, or let participants choose. And that's one of the new features. So it's going to tell me if I assign automatically, there's going to be 4 participants per room. You can also move people around. So if I assign automatically and then I go, oh, whoa, those 2 people cannot be in a room together, I can manually change those. So then I'm going to hit create. So then you're going to see that it's automatically created these breakout rooms. Well, I don't like these names because those are boring. So I'm going to call them something else. Okay. And let's say you two cannot be in a room together. So I'm going to move you here. And now we've got too many people here. So I'm going to move you up to there. So you just hover over someone's name and you get the option to either exchange or move. If someone else were to pop into the meeting, they would pop up at the top and you could add them. Or you can click on a sign and you can just see the list of people and you can click on them. The same thing would happen if you were to just create rooms. So if I were to say recreate, and we're just going to say assign manually. Now I've got 3 blank rooms. I can name them, and then I click on assign. I'm going to get the entire list of people. So if you had a pre-assigned list, like I want these specific people in these rooms, but I want to manually assign them, you can just go through and you can say bloop, 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 go to here and go there. And it's just pretty easy to just kind of click through and find the names and put who you want. And then I realized, okay, I've done that, but I've got some extra people somewhere. I'm gonna go there and there. Okay. And then I could also rearrange them. You also have options. So how your breakout rooms are gonna operate. When you click on this options button, even if you automatically assign or manually assign, if you want your participants to be able to jump between breakout rooms, you can click this button that says allow participants to choose room. So if they're in one breakout room and you want them to be able to hop to another one after a bit, then you choose that and they should be able to switch breakout rooms. If you don't want them to be able to do that, do not check that because they'll be bouncing back and forth. You can also choose whether you want them to be able to return to the main session at any time, or if you want them to stay put until you're done, like finish your conversation and then come back. If you automatically assign and you just want them to be shoved into those breakout rooms when you open the rooms, instead of them getting the button that says join breakout room and give them an option not to join it and ignore it, then you can click this. And as soon as you open the rooms, everyone's shipped off to their breakout rooms. You can choose to auto close them after a certain amount of time. Usually 15 to 20 minutes, depending on what you're doing, is a good, time frame for chatting in a breakout room. And then a countdown is recommended, usually about a minute. 30 seconds is kind of low, but you want to give them enough time to finish the conversations that they're having before it cuts them off. So once you have those set, then all you do is open the rooms. And if you've got people shipping off automatically, they'll all be shipped off. Otherwise, people will get an option to join the breakout room. And when they click on the button, they go there for the allotted amount of time. And there you go. If you needed to add another room or if new people joined, you can just keep this breakout room open, or if you close it, you just click here and open it again and add people to it, or switch rooms, or if somebody pops in and says, I can't seem to manage where I'm going, I need to go into this other room, and you can just say, oh, okay, I'll just move you into room 1. Boom. Questions about that? I know I was talking really fast and moving a lot, but trying to illustrate that it's pretty easy to manage. You just have one box and all of your tools are there. What kind of questions? Do we have confused? Yes, Allison.
What advantages do you see to having them move between rooms? Have you used that, or have you talked to anyone who's loves that function? I've never even thought of using it.
I haven't, but I could see a situation where you kind of drawing a blank now, but I could see a situation where you have, especially like in a classroom, or even for like the strategic planning kind of thing. I was thinking about that. Like if you had people talking about a specific topic, but you didn't want it to become stagnant. And so you had 3 or 4 people talking about something. And then you said, talk about this for about 4 minutes and then hop into another one and join another group and then kind of see what they're talking about and then jump into another one and just kind of get some different ideas going.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yes, Jennifer.
can tell Allison we use breakout rooms, and I really was excited when they set it up where people could leave the breakout rooms, because we use them in lab right now. We have social distancing, and so only half the students come to lab. The other half of the students do virtual experiment computations, and they talk to a TA. So I have them work in teams, and if they get stuck, they can raise their hand, and the host knows that they raised their hand, but that could be a problem because they might not come soon enough. And so like they could just walk out of their breakout room and go in the main room where the TA is and go ask their question. So it's I think it's really convenient for that purpose. They're there for 3 hours. And so, you know, it's good to have flexibility.
That's great. And another option would be, although then you would have somebody just sitting in a breakout room waiting to do like office hours. But I mean, if you had that lab kind of experience, if you wanted to have people sitting in a different breakout room, kind of hanging out to be helper people, you could jump out of one breakout room and then jump into another one to get assistance and then jump back into your group.
January uses breakout rooms for office hours. So she sends the Gen Chem students to one breakout room and the B&B students to another breakout room. And then she goes back and forth between them.
Yeah, that's great. There's lots of uses for breakout rooms. I think they're highly underutilized, and we're just kind of scratching the surface on what they can do. You all feel, go ahead.
One
Candace.
thing I was going to say is it would be great, obviously, if you're a co-host or a host, you can test it, right? Right now, you guys can't really test it out because you're not co-host or host with it. But it would be great after this, if whether within your department or your program, or even if you wanted to reach out to Christy and I and have a quick session, because you have to have at least one other person, right? So you can't just do a meeting with yourself. And I mean, you could see what a breakout room, but it won't really work as well. So if you're really kind of nervous about how do I set that up, I just wanted to let you all know that we're here to kind of help you kind of work and practice with it before you actually have to lead a meeting or, you know, kind of moderate one of the sessions, a breakout room.
Probably have 1 minute if anybody wants to be a guinea pig and try. Does anybody want to volunteer to try? I can make you a co-host and you can set breakout rooms. Somebody who hasn't done it at all, maybe. No pressure if you don't want to, we can pass, but just an opportunity.
Everybody's smiling.
Everybody's like,
We
no.
should have done a random generator. No, congratulations. No one wants to try? Okay, well, we can move
we'll
on,
move on.
Christy.
Okay. So the next thing I'm going to show you is the built-in whiteboard in Zoom. And it is a little limited in what it can do. And it's kind of hard to write on with, you know, a trackpad or mouse, but it has some useful features. And it can also be used in the breakout rooms, which is kind of handy. So it's basically just screen sharing. So you screen share, hit the screen share button, and okay, can I do this? Yes. This is going to be interesting. Okay, so you hit the screen share button and then you choose whiteboard. And then it's going to switch to whiteboard. So now you all should see whiteboard. What do you see? I'm sharing within a share. I don't understand what's happening. You all see the whiteboard?
We see the whiteboard.
Okay, cool. Okay, so now I'm sharing the whiteboard. So now you all should be able to annotate on this whiteboard. And if you annotate with just the pen, I mean, like, it's okay. You know, sort of. I could probably write my name in cursive. My finger's cramping, but text would probably be easier. So if you wanted to write text, you could probably do text and say, That would probably be easier if you all wanted to do like something like that. You can change colors. You can do a spotlight, so you can actually type something and then highlight it for everyone like that. And then there's some stamps. The cool thing here is that it is built directly into Zoom. And so everyone is annotating right in Zoom. Unlike some of the things that Candace is going to show you, you can screen share what everyone is collaborating on, but the actual collaboration is happening outside of Zoom. This collaboration is happening directly inside of Zoom. And you can save it, but like I said, it's a little, I don't know, I don't want to necessarily call it janky, but it's not necessarily clean. I mean, it's basically just like a whiteboard. Yes, Gina.
So how do we as participants, I'm trying to write something on the right whiteboard, but I don't know how.
Okay, so if you hover over the top, I think where I don't know what your settings look like, but somewhere you should have annotation tools. Maybe if you hover over.
I don't do it either, Christy.
Do you not? Okay.
I see it under view options, and then it
Yeah.
says annotate.
Yeah,
Annotate.
there you go.
Okay. Okay. Oh, cool. That's me making a mess. Yep.
Yep,
Okay.
and I can see, and it's attributing who's writing what. So Yvonne did that, Meredith did that. So I can see who is writing. Well, that's pretty good. I'm impressed. That's better than I did. Rita, hello.
I'm totally not seeing how I am able to do that. I hover over, I don't see view options.
It should be in the top, Marcia. If you're on a laptop, it gets condensed down. So if you know how sometimes you have the Zoom toolbar at the top, there should be view,
Yep.
and then go to annotate from that pull down list. Do you see annotate? It's under like the different
I see standard side by side, except full screen.
view options.
I don't see view options.
So at the very top, it should say you are viewing Christy Birch's screen in green.
Yes.
And
yes.
then right next to it on the right, it should say view options.
My camera was hiding it.
Wow.
Yeah, that happens when you're on a laptop, which I think most of us are, depending on your screen size.
Mhm. Where to go? Okay. So this can be just kind of like a good thing for like brainstorming or quick ideas or something like that. You know, funny drawings, a stress reliever in class. And you can create new ones. So if you hit the button at the bottom right, you get a new one. You can do like a grid. So I could do, well, actually, I don't know what that did. I thought that was a grid. That's just a square. Arrows, bigger squigglies. Whee. And I think you all can still annotate on the other one, maybe not, but and then I can save that, and then we could, you could put it on Moodle, OneDrive, email it, whatever, because it's so beautiful. We want to save this. So saved. Questions? Did everybody figure out how to annotate? Yes, Maria.
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
One is, how does this work? Sorry. How does this work in the breakout rooms? Is there a way for individual breakout rooms to work on a whiteboard themselves without them being hosts or co-hosts?
You would have to enable screen share for all participants if they're not
Okay.
co-hosts. So you would have to allow all participants to share their screen, and you can easily do that at the, where is my screen controls?
The bottom right.
Yeah, at the bottom under security, and then allow all participants to share their screen. And then they would just be able to click on new share or share and then do the whiteboard. So yeah, that's something they could do, and then they could save and save those with you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and the other question is, so I apologize if this is a stupid question, but I haven't yet been able to figure out the compatibility between the PC and the Mac things. That's very much so. If you had an iPad that could you ever link an iPad to a PC? In order to use the stylus and to write on the whiteboard is where I'm getting.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can connect the iPad to Zoom and use that, but I mean, you can't use the iPad as a stylus per se. I mean, just like as
Well, the
a
iPad,
stylus.
it comes with the, okay, if you have a pencil, I suppose, if you have an iPencil.
I mean, if you wanted to connect to Zoom, to the meeting in Zoom, then yeah, you could
Yeah.
use the stylus and write on the whiteboard
Okay,
with
so
the
just
iPad.
directly join from the iPad, join
Yeah.
the meeting and then
Yeah,
write
and
there.
that would work flawlessly. That's probably
That's
the
what I
best,
do
the
for
best
class.
way. That's the best way to do it. Yeah, Jennifer does that all the time with her with her iPad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. I think that's it for my stuff. And then we'll move on to Candace, and she's going to show you some of the other collaborative online tools.
Okay, so I don't know how many of our faculty or even our staff when they're in meetings are using the Zoom integrated whiteboard. But one thing that happened last spring, and I'm glad to see Jennifer on the call, her and Lenny were looking at Google Jamboard. We actually led a session. They helped lead a session with us comparing different whiteboard apps. And it seems Google Jamboard has the best features of Google, Microsoft, and then there's other ones. So I'm just going to quickly kind of go through and show you guys a little bit with Google and then a little bit with Microsoft, just so you can kind of see the difference with them. I shared a Jamboard link in the chat. So if you want to click on it and sign in with your center email, that would be great. And let me go ahead and share my screen with it as well. So I'm going to move the, so Google Jamboard is like a whiteboard, right? It's just like the whiteboarding feature in Zoom. It's I'm in an online web browser. So I went to jamboard.google.com. So you go to jamboard.google.com, sign in, and you can create your own Jamboard. And I'm going to show you how to do that here in a minute. So here's one that I've created for this session. And when you're signed in, you can see just like our Google apps, if you're signed in or not, you have the different sign-ins up here on the right side, just next to the share button. One thing with Google you have what is called frames, right? So think of that in terms of slides. So right here, I have 1 of 3. So if I arrow over, I can have another frame and another frame. So I set up 3 different frames. So if you're working in groups and maybe you don't want all these stick-it notes and text and stuff on a one frame or one slide, you can set up multiple frames within one Jamboard. So you don't have to set up 5 different Jamboards on here. On your left side, and hopefully you all can see it, on the left side, you have your different tools. Okay, so right now this is just a plain screen. I added a sticky note and threw it in the corner. I added a shape down here just to make it look a little prettier. And so you have your pencil tool that you can click on it, your stylus, you can say I want a marker, a highlighter, different colors. So you are limited a little bit in the colors, as well as your eraser, your select tool. So if you try your marker and I try to type my name, I am not good at writing my name. So go ahead if you if you want, go ahead and contribute to this or go on a different, see, I can't even write well with my touchpad on here. And so I prefer not to use the marker or the pen. Instead, I like to use the sticky note feature. So if I'm asking for ideas for collaboration, I can put a sticky note in and I can say, just type in my text and hit save. And I can keep adding as many sticky notes as I want, right? And then I can move it around. I can make it bigger, etc. Does everybody see that? Because I have some of the windows hidden on here. I also have, you can add multiple sticky notes. You can add your own photos. So if you want, I would like everyone to take a picture of themselves. So, hey, you can insert your own photo, right? And it's coming in, right? I'm cheating by using my iPad, yes. Yeah, so we're in a browser, right? So I'm gonna throw this picture there. We're in a browser using this, and I'm not great at using the touchpad, which is why I like the sticky note feature. You do have more features if you download the Google Jamboard app, if you have an iPad, or if you even wanted to try it on your phone, which might be a little hard. So the tablets, the apps have Android apps, they all have more features, okay? But I think Google, the browser works really well. And I know Jennifer uses it a lot in class. I don't know if anybody else on this call has used it, but a lot of our faculty use Ava said that she did. So a lot of faculty use this in their classes with it. You also can add shapes, right? And then obviously the text box. The one feature with Google that's really nice, and I'm looking at our faculty that are on the call, if they use it that Microsoft doesn't have, is the laser, right?
Yeah.
So I can say point here, right? Oh, look over there, right? And so the laser down at the bottom, it doesn't stay. You can just say, oh, right there is what I'm talking about. But you can, if you have a group of 5 groups, you can create a frame for each group, and they can add sticky notes or text, etc. on here within the Jamboard. So I have to move my Zoom window a little bit. So let me show you a few things within this and then how to create one, okay? So this is one I created. I just shared the link with everybody. If you're signed in, great. If you're not, great, you can still edit it. So if I click this share button right here, you can see I'm sharing it. I shared it specifically with Christy, right? So she could be logged in. I could just make myself be the owner, but I added Christy as well. If I didn't want her anymore, I can remove her, right? To have access to it. By default, let me go back to share and click too quick. When I have this get link. So anyone on the internet with this link can edit. So I don't know with strategic planning, they think they use Google, but maybe not Jamboard. But let's say we're doing more of those sessions, right? We could make the link, anyone with the link can edit, and then you just copy the link in your Zoom chat, and there you go. Or put it in your Moodle course, and there you go. If I hit change, you have several options. You can either make it anybody at center, and that's anybody at center. They have to sign in though with their center email, right? Or you can make it restricted, right? So only certain people. So if I had Christy, Todd, and Lisa, they're only ones to add, I can restrict it to them. So those are your 3 settings that you have if you're going to create a Jamboard. So I chose anyone with the link so I could just have it open and send it in the Zoom chat. Does that make sense? And then I just copied the link right here. Yes. Okay. Are there any questions so far with that? So if I go to this upper left corner, it takes me back. You can see a little bit on my screen. Let me highlight.
Candace, hang on. I think Gina had a question.
All right, thanks. I can't see everyone. Yeah, Gina.
You might get to this, but I used Jamboards a couple times, but the one thing I couldn't figure out is how to copy and paste, like from one slide to another. So you may get to it, but before I forgot, I wanted to ask.
All right, well, let me come back in that. So let's say I really like this. This was more text. On your sticky note, you can click the 3 dots and you can edit, delete it, or you can duplicate it. And then order is just when you're arranging objects behind each other. So if you added a photo, etc. So I can duplicate it, right? but I do my keyboard keys, Control X to cut, Control C to copy, Control V to paste. I don't think by default there's any in the Google Jamboard. So if I do a Control X, let me click it, Control X to cut it. If I go to the second slide and do Control V or Command, I'm on an Apple, I'm on a Mac, then I can paste it. So sometimes you may not see like file save or file edit or copy. Control X or Open Apple X is cutting, Control C is copying, and Control V is pasting. Does that make sense? Or Open Apple if you're on a Mac. I'm glad you asked that, Gina, because I actually forgot to add that on there. So that's a great question.
Yeah, that's good. Those are handy, just extra, tidbits, just for life anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And they work in any program. It's just like Control P is print, right? So you start learning those keyboards. So like, while I don't see those menu options here in Google, I know I can still do those within the browser. So yeah, thanks for asking that. I'm going to show how to create a new Jamboard, but before I do that, is there any other questions? Okay, so if I click on the little Jamboard icon, it takes me back to all my Jamboards I've created, which are not that many. I know our faculty have created a lot more on here. And if I want to create a new Jamboard, right, all I do is I'm on jamboard.google.com. I'm signed in. You can see in the upper right corner, I'm signed in with my center email. I click on that little plus sign right here in the bottom. And then it gives me an untitled Jamboard by default with just one frame. And I can come in the upper right corner or upper left, sorry, and I can title it workshop. And maybe I want to put a date on here and then hit OK. And then if I look at my sharing options on here, right, by default, it's set to restricted. So I would specifically have to add people in, right? And if I have 50 people, if I'm doing a session with all the faculty and all the staff, I don't want to add everybody manually, right? So instead, I'm going to want to change this link to either center, right? And I can have them be a viewer or an editor. I can also change it to anyone with the link. Not the downsides, but the downsides with anyone with the link is that they don't have it. I don't know if it prompted you. It shouldn't have prompted you to log in. But you can make someone a viewer or editor as well. And once you, so if I'm going to do this in our college, I want everyone to be an editor. And then I could copy the link, obviously, and then I hit done. Then when I put that in my chat, it's going to prompt everybody at center to log in, any students, faculty, or staff to log in with that. So I think it just depends if you want it to be anonymous or not on that. Are there questions with Jamboard? With using that? And I don't know, are the faculty that are on this call, if any of you guys have comments or things that you want to add? Maybe.
And one thing that's really nice is people can actually import other images from other places, and so you can really make it, fun in ways that I haven't been able to manage in other places.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a good point because I love that you have images. I know when we get to Padlet, which is somewhat similar, but Padlet allows you to add more than just images. You can add videos and or text or links, right? Where Jamboard is just really a whiteboard, but you can add images. So a lot of it depends on what your goal is or how you want your students to interact or you want your colleagues to interact. And that's where Christy and I can kind of help determine if you're like, I'm not sure which application, we can help you kind of figure out what it is that you want to do to figure out what's going to be their best choice. Okay, so if there's no more questions with Jamboard, I should say, let me go back to this other one. So I want to show real quick, if you do a clear frame, it clears everything that you wrote that you had on it. Okay, now I can do an edit undo, which is Command Z or Open Apple Z, right? But I would try to avoid not doing that too much where you lose everything. You could also have your set background as well. But you know, there are a little bit limitations within some of the features, but I did want to show the clear frame on what that can do as well. Okay, so let me just quickly talk about Whiteboard, which is Microsoft. So as you know, at Center, we have Google, we have Microsoft, right? So either one, right? They both kind of do the same thing. What I want to show you, and I'm going to send you this link here in a minute. What I want to show you is a little bit of the limitations with Microsoft. So let me, so when you go to whiteboard.microsoft.com, you would sign in with your Center username and password the same way. And when you share, you can have a sharing link. So let me share here. Let me stop share for a sec and put this in the chat. So that way you all, and let me go back to share the screen. Okay. So with Microsoft, and I'm in a browser, I'm not on the app. The app has more features, okay? So with Microsoft, you have the same thing. You have a white canvas whiteboard. One thing, if you're on a touchpad or laptop touchpad, I can use my touchpad and kind of zoom in and zoom out, which can be like, woo, too much. See that, how I'm doing that, right? So you got to be careful, but it gives you basically an infinite canvas area that I can then scroll over and put stuff on. I have my different pen tool colors that I can try to write something on here, and I am not good at all. I'm not like Meredith. I think she did a good job on the Zoom whiteboard. And so you have your pen, you have your eraser, you have your text, and you have your sticky notes. So those are the only features you have in the Whiteboard browser, okay, on here. But it, like I said, for our faculty and staff that have a tablet, you can download the apps and then you'll see more features with that. The sharing also only allows you to share the link or not share the link. So if you wanted to share specifically with your students and specifically add them, you will have to use it on a tablet or create it up and set it on a tablet because you're a little bit more limited. You do have some settings. So while this is okay, the Jamboard's, I think, a lot better, right? And a lot of it just depends. If you just you're a Microsoft person and you just want to do everything in Microsoft, I mean, it will still work for what you're wanting to do. You don't have the different frames. You don't have kind of like the different slides that you do in Google. And you can see, let me pull up so I can see I have some. So here's one from last summer when we were comparing all the different apps on here with it. So I don't want to waste a lot of people's time, but you can see like there's text and writing and there's some photos, but these photos were added in using the app, not the browser. So that's where you get some limitations. So you can see, oh yeah, there's a photo. Well, how did that happen? Well, it's because it was used on the app, which gives you a little bit more features on the Whiteboard. Are there any questions or things that you want to see? Because I just kind of wanted to show that as a comparison because we said we would. So let me stop the share for a sec. Yeah. And I don't know, did anybody try opening up the Whiteboard? Were you able to get in?
It took me a minute. I think I had logged off, like I was off it had logged me off CenterNet. So I think I had to go through that again before it let me open it. But then I was able to get in.
Yeah, and I think Jennifer, you looked at, I know Jennifer and Lenny led some workshops with us last summer. We had the app, there was an authenticator you had to download as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
Did it. So there was a lot of issues last spring and summer that with using Microsoft. So I think if you're looking for a better collaborative tool with your class or even with your colleagues, I would kind of steer you to Jamboard just because it has more of the features and it's really easy to use from a user standpoint. So I think when we show you Padlet, and I know Allison and Jennifer can add a little bit more with that too, you can kind of see which one might work better for you. Any questions with Jamboard or Microsoft? Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Christy to talk about polling.
Sorry, I got lost there for a minute. I was playing with something. I was trying to see if you could drag and drop over without using the app, and it wasn't working. Anyway, and then my screen went away. TMI. Okay, so polling. Yes. This is something I haven't tested as the co-host, so I don't know, but I do know that it works as the host. So when you are the host, you can set up polling. I know all of you who have attended the faculty meeting have used this. So you have polling along the bottom here. You can set up questions ahead of time, which is preferred, but you can do it on the fly. It's going to bump you back to the web anyway, because that's where you set up the questions. So if you're doing it in a meeting, you would want to do it at the very beginning of the meeting because it's, yeah, preferably you want to set it up on your meeting before you actually start the meeting. But this is how you get there. So you can click on polling here, and then if you hit add a question, it's going to take you to the web, which went to my other screen. All right. So then it's going to take you to this meeting that we were in. And when you scroll down to the bottom, wait for it to, my internet is not behaving. Okay. It's going to pop up this screen to add a poll. So you give it a title, poll 1. You can determine whether or not you want the answers to be anonymous. So that is your choice. If you click anonymous, then you won't have any identifying information for any of the answers. And you type your question. Can't type. And then hit save. You can add another question. I usually just hit save and wait for it to do. Okay. And then launch. You can launch the poll if you want, or you can go back in and you can add more questions. So I'm going to add more questions because I want more than one. So if you were going to do this ahead of time, you would just go into your meeting and you would go to your center.zoom.us and you would log in and you would click on meetings, and then you would find your meeting that you want the polls to be on. And I apologize for my internet being so slow. This is taking forever. Click on your meeting. And then scroll down to the bottom. And then you click on poll. And it'll show you if you have questions already set up, and you can edit those, or you can add more. So we'll add additional questions. All right, good enough. Okay, so then when you go back to the meeting, if I click on polling now, I'm going to have my questions there. And I can choose which poll I want to do. So I don't necessarily have to do poll 1 at the beginning, but I'm going to launch the poll. So if I launch the poll, now you're going to see my screen share, but you're also going to have the ability to fill out the poll. So you can go ahead and fill out the poll so you can see it from both sides. And you can see how many attendees or have filled it out. And then when you're ready to end the poll, you can hit end poll. And you all are seeing this, but normally participants would not. So you have the option to then share results. So if I share results, then you're actually going to see the results that I'm sharing, even though I'm sharing. It's weird. Okay. So then I can go to the other poll. So I could go along with my meeting. I'm doing, the rest of my meeting. And then later on, I've got another question I want to ask. So then I would click the polling button again, and then I would choose my other question. And then I would say, okay, launch poll. And you could do this throughout the class, throughout the meeting, anytime. And you could just kind of have these preset questions, and they could be generic, I mean, like for the faculty meeting, it's stuff like, I approve the question that was just asked, or no, I don't like the question that was just asked. So it can be pretty generic. Does the host or co-host also vote in the poll? You can, I think. Do you have to?
It's weird as a co-host, I will say, so I'm seeing it, but I wasn't able to actually click, but I don't know too, because Christy's sharing a screen and another, like, I feel like I'm clicking on the right screen.
Yeah, it's weird.
Because I feel like I also could have, as a co-host, she's the host, it's letting me, I could share the results. So I was seeing it with what the host had. So I would say, I don't think the host can, but we'd have to do some more testing on that.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I have
Okay.
a question.
Yes.
So you're in your Zoom meeting. Before the meeting, you set up your polls. Do you have to log back into Zoom to get to the polls to get it back into the Zoom meeting, or
No. Nope. So when you're on your meeting, when you're on the web, you set up those poll questions on the web in your meeting. So under poll, here's your questions. It didn't take my second question, so refresh there. When you set them up on your meeting, those are connected. So they're connected in the app, they're connected on the web. Those two things are in sync. So if you create them on the web, then when you log into your app or you open your meeting on the app, those are going to be there. So as soon as you hit the poll button on your app, they're there.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
So I can just hit the poll icon at the bottom of my screen in Zoom in the meeting.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep. That's all you have to do. And then you can choose which of the polls that you pre-created you want to launch first.
Okay.
Yep. Any questions about that other than the co-host thing? And I know it's weird when I'm sharing the Zoom controls inside the Zoom control. It gets a little confusing. I probably should have stopped sharing while I was doing that. I wonder if it looks different now if I do this. If I relaunch the weather one.
Well, and I will
now, do you have
say,
the opportunity to vote, Candace?
I still cannot vote, but I will say when I click polling as a co-host, and it could be how Christy set the meeting up too, because she added me under that additional host, right, in the meeting. So it's not like she just changed me as co-host. And so I can actually see, because all the polls are tied to this meeting, I could even launch the poll as well as the co-host. So it's not letting me.
Okay, I'm going to end this. So that's a good question. You know what? Let's just test that real quick. Let me make Allison a co-host and see if you can launch the poll. Would that answer your question, or?
Well, it would be you launching the poll. Well, see if she can launch it, but I think it would be if she could click it, because I
think
can't.
if I can vote, that's my question.
Okay, if you can vote. Okay,
So am I a co-host?
You're a co-host, yes.
Okay, why don't you see if I can
okay, so I'm going to relaunch this again. Sorry, and see if you can vote.
Nope.
No. Okay, co-host cannot vote in polls, which I guess makes sense because you really just want your participants to vote.
Because I was thinking in the classroom, you'd really care about what your students.
Thank you all for continuing to vote on this. You all are great.
Christy, I have a question though. So
Yes.
you're saying you schedule your meeting, you know, in advance, send out the Zoom calendar invite, whatever, and then you go back into your Zoom meeting that you've set up and click on poll and set your questions. And then when you leave, it'll save it for when you come back the next time, right?
Yep. I mean, you can set them up before you send out the invitation. I mean, it's really irrelevant. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, because the link they get doesn't have any of that information in it. This is all stuff you set on the back end. I mean, the only thing they're getting is the link information. Everything that you're doing inside the meeting, whether it's setting up breakout rooms or polling or any of that stuff, is just for you in the meeting itself to control the meeting. So you can do that before you send out the invite, after you send out the invite. It's all a matter of your organizational skills and what makes sense to you.
But it saves it. Anytime you go in there to do something like that, it saves it automatically. Do you have to hit save or just save it?
No, it just saves automatically.
Okay.
Yep.
So I know we have a few minutes left before we wrap up. So I just want to quickly show, and I'm glad to see, like I said, Allison and Jennifer led a workshop a couple of weeks ago that we have recorded on our website about Padlet. So if you went to padlet.com, Padlet is like a digital notice board. What it does is it allows you to add images and links and videos and documents, right? All on like a kind of consider it a wall or a canvas. So I created one, and I don't actually think I put it in the chat. Let me quick, did I copied it. Okay. So if you wanted to see, let me get back to screen share. And I created a Padlet on here. And so what you can do, if you click on the link, it may or may not prompt you to log in depending on the sharing. If I wanted to add a new kind of comment, or not comment, a post, I can click this little plus sign, right? And then it can give me, it's kind of like Facebook, right? Where you can say, check this out, right? Or a little bit more than that. And I can put a link, I can put a photo. So if I had, here's our technology series and what we did, and I know I already had, I can put the link there. I can click the link and paste it and hit save, and it's going to post it. So how our faculty are using this a lot with students posting things. I don't know, Allison, if you and Jennifer, I don't want to put you guys on the spot, but I feel like you guys can kind of highlight a little more about how you've used Padlet. We used it for FYC. Christy and I were FYC instructors in the fall, and we used it, and my students loved it. On here, you can get 3 Padlets for free. Now, if you had a Padlet account like I did in the spring, those saved, so any 3 new ones. I could delete this one and then create a new one. So with our free account, if you've used that, if you click on share here in your Padlet, let me move my little video camera. I invited Christy, she got an email to say, hey, collaborate with me. I can copy the link to the clipboard. I can keep it. I can allow people to write. So you have a lot of different options that you can add for your Padlet. You can also click on these 3 dots, because remember, you see 3 dots in like Google or Microsoft or Padlet that gives you more options. And you can modify the name, right? You can choose your appearance, your fonts. You have a lot of options that you can do, as well as changing the format. So I'm just going to show you real quick. I chose, I think this was like a, I don't want to say a grid, but kind of a layout. But if I wanted more of a canvas, which is like free flowing, and I can drag these, now I got to move my window. I can drag them around, right? A canvas allows me to do that versus some of the other layouts that Padlet has. If I go back up here to Padlet.com, right? Padlet.com, you sign in with your center username and password. You can see these are all my different Padlets that I have. And I could just hit make a Padlet. And then it walks you through and says, well, what kind of look that do you want to have? And you can choose canvas, free flowing, or if you want more structured or outline. Or Allison showed us a really great example of how she used the timeline in one of her classes as well. So Padlet's another collaboration tool. With it, it just depends on what all you're wanting to do. If you want to use more just, hey, whiteboarding and sticky notes, and that's fine. Or if you want to really have students go out, or colleagues, if I had Christine Todd go, let's go find some other new technology stuff that other schools are doing. Maybe we do a Padlet and we share it that way within that. And I know that was really, really quick, but does Jennifer or Allison have anything you want to add with Padlet, since you guys have used it a lot more?
You should go to the gallery. You can see lots of awesome different ways to use it that way.
That's a great.
I think it's really great for collaboration, and it's very easy on the eyes with all the time that we've been spending in front of screens. This is the app that I feel like is the least damaging to like my brain. And I said this in the workshop that Jennifer and I led, is that on more than one occasion, I've heard students say to each other, this Padlet thing is working really well for class. So if they're actually saying it, I think it's okay. And they're not that much smarter at technology than us. They're only really good at the things they like. So, so the learning curve is not steep with Padlet, and it seems pretty intuitive. They can be anonymous, or they can create an account. So I've always said to students, you don't have to create an account. But if you do create an account and I can see that you're posting, we can count it towards participation. So.
How do you all use that? Just, I mean, I know there's a million ways, but what's a basic way to use that with students?
I use it like a chalkboard when I'm teaching on Zoom. And so I might put an image up there of something we're studying, and they can write comments on it, or I can kind of have a thesis statement. I'll say, well, what do you think about, I'll say something crazy. Say, what do you think about this? And they get really worked up and they type in it. And Jennifer has some great ways that she's been using it too, that she's given me some good ideas I'm sure she could share.
I had students turn in presentations. You can set it up so that the posts don't get approved automatically. And so when you come in, you get a little button that says delete or approve. And that way you can keep track of like which ones you've already watched. And then I moved the students' presentations to another Padlet and called it their portfolio.
That's great. Thank you.
I know it's time to wrap up. I just want to show one more thing. So today's recording, along with our other links and stuff, if you go to ctl.center.edu, if you click on instructional technology, right, under the technology training, we have the 2021 tech series. The recent one that Allison and Jennifer did on Padlet is, if you scroll down, you'll see the live workshops. So today's session will be posted here in a little bit. So you'll see the link there, as well as additional documentation for links to Jamboard and Google as well as if you wanted to watch the using Padlet to teach hybrid and remote classes as well. So technology training under 2021 technology. So I just wanted to showcase that, and thank you guys for coming. If you have any questions, just let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
all so
again.
much. Hope
Bye,
you all
everyone.
have a
Thank you so
great
much.
evening.
Happy St.
Share.
Patty's Day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.